Good evening, everyone. It is Tuesday, December 17th, 2024. Time is 6:30 p.m. I'm John Dwanzik, and this is the regular meeting of the Avon Lake Board of Municipal Utilities. Last meeting of the year for this body. Tonight, I am joined by fellow board members. To my right, Mr. Ricky and Mrs. Schnabel, and to my left, Mr. Rush. Missing tonight is Mr. Abram due to a medical situation. He will not be able to attend, so he is excused. Tonight's meeting will be live streamed on Facebook and on YouTube. With 4 members here tonight, we will still need 3 affirmative votes for any motion. All votes will be taken by voice vote with the exception of motion to go into executive session, which there is none planned, but if we had one, it would be done by roll call vote. With us also tonight are staff members, Mr. Rob Monroe, Chief Utilities Executive, Mr. Greg Urinich, Chief of Utility Operations, and Mr. Bill Logan, who is the Business and Financial Coordinator. Also at the table with Mr. Urinich and Mr. Logan is Attorney Coyne from the Mansur Gavin Law Firm. In the audience tonight, we have, in order of arrival, Mr. Nick Mondello, Mr. Bill Zimmerman, and Mr. Gerald Phillips. I think that covers everything except for if you are watching on Facebook or YouTube, you have an opportunity to comment as if you were here. When we get to the public speakers section, I'll ask for that. And Mr. Urinich will be monitoring that. I think, did I cover everything?
Yes, I think
Good.
you did.
Okay, so the first order of business is the approval of minutes. And we have some straggling minutes from November 19th that you should have a revised copy to your in your packet that has the revised work session minutes from November 19th. Does anyone have any further comments on those? Mr. Ricky?
Yes, I was the one who questioned or wanted the adjustments made or the revisions made to the board of to the minutes from that work session on November 19th. And reviewing these, I think that this is appropriate to the events that took place that night. And I'm happy that we made the adjustments for me. Thank you.
Okay. Are there any comments from the rest of the board on those? Okay, hearing none. Those are approved. Now we'll go on to the meeting minutes of the regular meeting of the board on December 3rd. Are there any comments on those? Hearing none, they are approved as submitted. The next item, which will include any commenters online, is public speakers. You have 3 minutes each. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to speak at this time? And Mr. Urinich, let me know if by the time he's done, whether we have anyone in cyber world.
William Zimmerman. So I just want to make sure that you guys are aware of the changing of public meetings. That, first of all, decorum is only supposed to be required by you all. I am no longer have to have decorum. I can say whatever I want. It's a one-way street now. There's no responding, answering of questions, or anything in that matter where I'm interrupted. I get 3 minutes or however long you have for the duration of the time. No other things. So first off, talk about decorum. Because at one of my previous meetings where you didn't follow these rules, you allowed them to badger me, to say whatever they wanted to, called me a liar several times. Defamation of character. I'm going to sue the shit out of you now. Just so you understand. You guys have been running roughshod, doing whatever you want. You guys don't care. So my next question has to do with where's the 300,000 that came from the grant from the city? Because supposedly it was transferred to here. Now you're commingling finances, which I still to this day don't understand how that happens. Because you have one tax ID number. People get paid from the city of Avon Lake, even if they work for Avon Lake Regional Water. Don't understand. So that might be why we're still in audit with the city of Avon Lake. Don't know for sure, because I'm not a CPA, but there's one in the back of the room. We'll find out eventually. And so we've sued the city of Avon Lake and 14 people at the Ohio Supreme Court last Thursday. There's a good chance that you all would be included. That's about all I got for now. I can't wait to my next turn, though. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Zimmerman. Anyone else? Anybody in cyber world?
Amy Gentry just would like to offer her apologies for not being there in person. She said she had an issue at work.
Well, we appreciate it when she does come. Thank you. Okay, that's it for public speaking, it appears, or here comes Mr. Phillips.
How are you, John? My neighbor,
Okay,
Gerald W. Phillips, 461 Windward Way. It's nice to come before a board that has open public meetings and has meeting minutes prepared. And Mr. Monroe has always been complying with public records requests. Unfortunately, we have in the city of Avon Lake, through the Avon Lake Community Improvement Corporation, a subcommittee known as the Brownfield Committee, which seems to like to operate in secrecy. They don't have open public meetings. They don't have any meeting minutes of their 16 meeting minutes that we were able to determine from reviewing Todd Davis's billing records. So unfortunately, in order to get information about the very important issue, the remediation of the power plant, we had to go to the Supreme Court and seek such information. Maybe Mr. Monroe can answer this question. I believe it's the intent for the Avon Lake Regional Water to move west from the existing water treatment plant to the border of the Avon Lake Power Plant. Seems like you've been acquiring land. I believe there was 3 of them just recently acquired. Am I correct in that assumption, Mr. Monroe?
For the future expansion.
And I see you use Sowers, Brio.
Sowers and Bowie.
I mean, we found an appraisal by them for the power plant that was never disclosed to city council when they voted on the interim agreement, and they proceeded on the basis that the land was valued and included at 15 million when the appraisal showed it only at 2.37. So, obviously city council doesn't operate like this board. Thank you.
thank you, Mr. Phillips. Again, Mr. Urinich, anybody else online? Any other speakers from the audience that haven't already spoken? All right, let's move on to correspondence. Mr. Monroe.
I have no correspondence this evening, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. All right, then let's move on to expenditures on your goldenrod sheets. Would someone like to make the motion to approve the expenditures? Mr. Rush? Oh, Mr. Ricky?
I don't care.
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
Go ahead. I move to approve the expenditures for Avon Lake Regional Water from November 28th through December 12th, 2024.
Thank you, Mr. Ricky. Is there a second?
I second.
Second by Mrs. Schnabel. Discussion. Mr. Ricky, you look like you're ready to go.
Yeah, now I got to find it again. There was one on here that I just didn't understand. It's electrical work. Where is it? Help me out here, guys. Electrical work for, and there was
Number 74 on Fund 701,
this is 70.
Gideon, Frederick, and Morsher. Electrical design.
That's the one.
So that
What is OSHG? That's what I didn't understand.
on-site hypochlorite,
Oh,
sodium hypochlorite generating station.
Thank you. That was why I didn't understand it. I wasn't sure what the acronym stood for. Thank
What
you.
that represents is
Yeah.
so that we had the electrical components for our tech wing.
I just didn't know who that was or what that meant. That was my first question and only question. Thank you.
Anything else, Mr. Ricky?
No, that's all I had. Thank you.
Anyone else on the board? I have a general comment here. Mr. Logan and Mr. Monroe, please listen up. I think at some point we need this to be year end. And so the next meeting is until the 7th of January, but so I would think the next time we approve the expenditures, they should be segregated by year so that we see how the actual budget performance was. And there'll be similar comments later when we get to the appropriations, but just to, because as a board, part of what we have to do is oversee how we're doing on such matters as budgets. So otherwise, I notice we're going to get to the appropriations, but I notice here and there we have expended more than the budget, but then there's most of the line items we've expended less than the budget, and I think you'll be telling me that it all comes out in the wash later on, but that's the kind of thing we want to make sure that we're correctly accounting within the fiscal year. So
Certainly.
I don't have any particular quibbles with what expenditures there are. Mr. Rush, you have anything?
No.
Okay, so the motion has been made and seconded. If there's no further discussion, all in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
The motion is approved. Okay, next item, speaking of which, is budget transfers, and I believe that is the aforementioned Mr. Bill Logan. So, Mr. Bill, please.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So a couple notes here as I talk about these appropriations. At end of year, in any government entity, you've usually got either transfers of appropriations or increase in appropriations as budget monies run out. But you do, like you pointed out, Mr. Chairman, a lot of accounts don't spend anywhere near their budgeted amount. So with that in mind, just a couple of notes. The fund balances that you see on these sheets are as of November 30th. The city's final check run for 2024, and they would do a normal weekly check run to your normal vendors. So December 11th was the last date they cut any checks to vendors. Now we'll still have a payment to Great Lakes Construction, who is the contractor on the water plant improvement project. That'll probably be made this week, and that's about $1.2 million, but there's a purchase order out there for that. It's not going to affect any appropriations or anything like that. We have one more payroll to be posted on December 26th. That will be expense that you'll see on these statements at the
Right.
January 7th
Charged
meeting.
against
Other than that, not a lot of check
2024. Right.
payments. But so what I've done, what we put together here, and know that auditor of state rules require that you can't, on any single line item, you can't spend more than what was appropriated. If you do, you're in an over appropriated status, and you get, a lot of times you get an audit comment. If it happens quite a bit with your accounts, you get a little bit more than a comment. You get maybe, I don't want to say a reprimand, but a suggestion that, you tighten up on your budget. So, but I don't want to get any comments. I don't think the city wants to get any comments, so thus the need for these schedules. So there are two different schedules, and this is the way that I think is a better way to look at this. The first one being what I'm calling appropriation transfers. This is basically moving unspent budget funds from certain line items to line items where we spent more than what the budget was. And that's permissible. It is required by council. In this case, the Avon Lake City Charter requires council to approve those budget transfers. And by transfers, they have to be within an expense category. We can't move
budget monies from, say, salaries down to operating supplies, that kind of thing. You can only move within those certain categories. So certain salaries can be moved to other salaries or overtime expenses and things like that. Whereas all your other operating expenses, your miscellaneous contracts and operating supplies, they can be moved within that grouping. So that's at the first page that we're calling it 2024 supplemental appropriation transfers. These are just budget monies from other line items moving into these line items to cover the overspending that happened in certain lines. Okay? And again, the fund balances are as of November 30. And keep in mind, these appropriation transfers and even the increase in the appropriations that I'll talk about here, they don't affect the fund balance itself. The fund balance has already been affected by the expenses that have been paid. So by moving budget monies or by increasing budget monies, appropriations, you're not taking monies away from the fund balance. The second sheet then, which we're calling supplemental increase in appropriations, this is adding budget funds to certain accounts and line items that are overspent. This type of increase in appropriations under Ohio Revised Code always requires legislative approval. So City Council does always have to approve, and they did last night, these increases in the appropriations. So this was on their agenda last night, along with some of the city supplemental appropriations. Just a couple comments, and really every year, whatever appropriations remain in your financials, you're basically any budget money's not spent, they revert to zero. They go back to zero. Your new budget year starts over. You have new appropriations for the new year. That's what the budget was that this board passed a few weeks ago. And that, by the way, City Council also passed last night. Now, they passed what's called a temporary budget. They'll pass a permanent budget sometime before March 31st. I don't anticipate our budget to change. I think it's pretty well set. But that's the 2025 appropriations. Now, encumbrances, which are purchase orders, those will carry over into the new year. So we've got certain purchase orders that are out there that will carry into 2025. One comment on the supplemental increase in appropriations. If you look at the LORCO account or LORCO fund, it's number 749 down near the bottom of that page, where we're increasing appropriations for really 4 different line items. And by the way, these small ones, the OWDA principal payments for 34 cents, sounds kind of silly, but we need to appropriate that money. Otherwise, we're overspent in that line and we get an audit comment. So I need to appropriate that 34 cents just to make that line come out zero. But we are overspent by about $78,000 there. We're going to ask the board to increase those appropriations. Again, will not affect that fund balance, even though we're actually appropriating more than what that fund balance is. Again, that fund balance has already been reduced from the expenses that have already occurred. We're just asking to increase the appropriations, no effect on the fund balance. And then I know there was a question, I believe, about the line called refunds and reimbursements for $50,000. That's not your typical refund, like when a customer might overpay and they ask for their money back. This is where, if you're familiar, and I know Mr. Avon's not here tonight, but there's LORCO, and then there's LORCO 2. LORCO 2 consists of about 150 customers. They don't have a credit card merchant account. They use the LORCO merchant account. So when those LORCO 2 customers pay by credit card online, like a lot of them do, that money's going into that LORCO merchant account. And then once a month, we're transferring via check those LORCO 2 payments out of that merchant account into the LORCO 2 bank account. Okay, so that's what that 50,000 is. That we didn't budget enough money there, and that number is going to probably continue to grow as the LORCO 2 population grows.
Now, LORCO 2, can I just ask a question?
Yes.
LORCO 2 does not come back. That's not anything we do treatment on or anything. That's
That's
strictly
right.
a
Correct.
separate entity,
Correct.
but we just handle the billing. Is that correct?
Correct.
We handle
Thank you.
billing and the collection. They've got their own bank account, which we don't manage. We have a
Okay.
Lorco bank account, which we do manage to some
Right.
extent and can cut checks off of in this custodial fund. But that Lorco 2 bank account, the executive director of Lorco kind of manages that. We're just transferring these credit card payments
Gotcha.
into that bank
Gotcha.
account.
Makes sense. Thank you.
Let's see, other than that, we will have expenses through the end of the year at that January 7th board meeting. I know the city may still have some adjustments they'll be making maybe past that date of January 7th, but whatever expenses we do have through 12/31, we'll certainly have on a schedule like this.
Okay, since you brought it up, this Lorco 2 matter, do we charge them for the service of collecting bills and paying? And sounds like another free ride to me. I don't know.
We do through Lorco,
Correct.
through the Lorco arrangement, Mr. Chairman, not directly sending a bill to
Lorco
Lorco
2.
2.
Okay, so we are being reimbursed like any other
We're-
service
Right,
we
we're
do for them.
compensating through
Okay,
that Lorco.
that's all I was asking, like, because I hadn't heard that Lorco 2 term before, so it's now that they're outside, I guess, of the original FPA. Is that correct?
Yeah, the original phase 1, Lorco / Avon Lake Municipal Utilities FPA. And then this is a separate part of what's considered Lorco FPA, not ALMU, and it sends flow elsewhere.
But just for the convenience of not having to have a separate billing and payment processing system, we do that because we're such nice guys.
It's efficient.
Okay.
It is-
All right.
it is.
Thank you, Mr. Logan. Any questions from the board for Mr. Logan on the transfers?
Mr. Chairman.
Okay, we have a recommended motion, Judge.
Yes, and I'm going to modify just to add the word, the 2 memorandums, so that we know exactly. I know there's only 2, and they are both dated today. I'm just gonna-
December 12th.
That's correct. I
Yes.
mean, it references that. I just want to make sure we're
Yes.
talking about 2 memorandums.
I want to, before you
Sure.
finish with the editing, we have a few St. Ignatius graduates here. I want to ask about memorandums and memoranda. Should it be in the Latin or should it be just an S thrown on the end gratuitously?
Do it either way in this matter, English language that we've developed in the United
Oh.
States.
I'll leave it to Mr. Rush.
Okay. I usually read what's written, so.
Okay.
Okay. I move to authorize the business and financial coordinator to make the necessary transfers and appropriations for the 2024 budget based on the 2 memoranda dated December 12th, 2024.
Thank you, Mr. Rush. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Mr. Ricky. Discussion from anyone else?
No, I think Mr. Logan did a wonderful job on putting this together for us, quite honestly. This is very much easier to understand.
Yep, well, that's the advantage of having somebody that's an expert in that position
Right there.
versus the past, you know what I mean?
Mhm.
Okay, well, all in favor of the motion, say aye.
All right.
Aye. Then that motion is approved. Next item, it looks like Mr. Urinich is going to, step up to the plate here on the annual distribution supplies bid. So, Mr. Urinich?
So on November 27th, we opened the bids received for the water distribution supplies. Couple of changes. We did kind of limit it. We had in the past, we had, I guess, a much longer list of supplies that we had bid, but a majority of those have not been ordered, used over the past several years. So we did try to, I guess, kind of condense the materials that we would be expecting. We did only receive the one bidder. It seems like the prices are not as volatile as they had been throughout the past. Some of the prices had slightly come down, some have slightly gone up. There weren't that, I guess, large margin of changes that we were seeing. One thing we would like to do is move back to an annual bid for these materials. And we do have a recommended award based off of the engineering certified bid tabulation.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Urinich. Mr. Monroe, you have a question? Mr. Rush.
You know, I'm going to ask about the ones that are no good even by Core and Main. And I did see the notes on it, and I'm questioning number 8, Ford in lieu of Mueller. I'm assuming that's for the vault. I'm trying to correlate that to a line item.
Yes, line item number 8,
Okay.
which is a specific item,
Yes.
20-inch meter
is
ball.
the 20-inch meter vault cover. So it's the cover for the vault. They're quoting a Ford brand as opposed to the Mueller, just due to our purchase history. There used to be both listed, and we found that the Fords fit. So it's listed on their exception sheet, but it's not.
It's a
an issue
non-issue.
for us. It's a non-issue, as with the remaining exceptions on there. And as you can see, several of them, for instance, they quoted a 400-foot roll instead of a 350-foot roll due to availability. And those typically have to do with copper, rolls of copper. So those are all acceptable. That's not an issue as far as we're concerned.
So when we went back to the annual, I see some were based on the length of the contract. So that's not been comfortable in that particular line item, item 22A and 22L through 22L. Due to contract length.
Yeah, that specific item, yes, because of the price out for the contract length of 1 full year.
So do we go back at some point and rebid those for a shorter period of time, or do we stop? How do we handle the other items?
The Thompson Pipe Group is, again, it's acceptable to us in this. I think for that one item, we would not. The other ones that we received no bids on, those are rather, no one really stocks those.
Okay.
They're items, for instance, in the past, we've done bids for our large pipe clamps. They don't stock those. Those are kind of made to order. And we're talking the ones that we use on like the ETLs, the large 36-inch repair clamps. We could use 1 or 2 of those in a year, or we could use 10 or 12 of those in a year. It all depends on the break history.
So we keep a stock of them, obviously.
Yes.
And as we replace that stock, it's the market price essentially.
Correct.
Okay, Mr. Ricky.
Yeah, just a question. As part of the contract, is there a requirement of that for them to have some of these on the shelf at all times for us?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
they have to have stock readily available
Yes.
to everything that they bid to us?
Yes,
Okay.
and that's why we structure the contract, the bid specifications in a way that we have estimated quantities. So, but it's plus or minus. So they know as a bidder that we could buy 100 of that item, or we could buy 0. But it gives them an idea, and they do have that inventory and that stock readily.
And if we buy 101, we pay the same price as the
Yes.
first 100?
Correct.
Okay,
Yeah.
very good,
It's plus or minus.
very good. Thank you. That's all I have.
I'd like to ask a couple of questions. Do you have something you want to say right
I was just going to add that, related to, receiving the one bid, this is something that we've been struggling with for a number of years on this. I did reach out to one of the other vendors, Ferguson, inquired with them as to why they sometimes have bid and sometimes they choose not to bid. And I spoke to them today. They indicated on our bid, because as part of when we put out our bid specifications, we do provide what the current contract pricing is because it's public information. Be completely straightforward, Core and Main was not happy that we did that. We started doing that a few years ago. But quite frankly, when I explained to them that we're a public entity and it's a public record, once you are awarded that contract, those prices are public. So for us to provide them as part of our bid specifications so that everyone knows what our current prices are is, I mean, that's the way our bid is going out. So I did have that conversation with Core and Main. Ferguson, though, knowing that and able to review what the current prices are, they cannot compete price-wise. And so they indicated that the amount of work that goes into preparing a bid package, they know that they're not going to be able to compete on the price. So that is why this time they did choose not to bid. They did indicate, though, that they do look at every bid. They don't just automatically dismiss it. The other aspect also over the last, 8 to 10 years in the industry is Core and Main has merged and acquired other companies, other suppliers. So Core and Main is a large company, and they do have a lot of reach as far as those materials go. We're going to continue to try and solicit as many bids as we can so that it is as competitive as possible. But again, I just wanted to, let the board know we're not very satisfied with only having one bidder, but unfortunately we are in that situation.
Well, I'd like to pick up on some of the foregoing remarks. I remember we have had some grief with Core and Main in the past in regard to when PVC pipe went through the roof. I think, when right after the last presidential election and we were to buy a bunch of pipe, we almost considered not buying PVC pipe because the price was so high. And I think even going back maybe into some earlier time, there was another, what we thought was gouging of price by Core and Main. So I'm not like crazy about them. So I want to penetrate a little bit the contract that we're giving them. Now, if they sign it for a year, have you locked them in for a year? They're compelled to perform for that length of time at these prices.
Yes, that is correct.
Okay, because previously they didn't want to sign a 1-year contract because they felt the prices were changing too much and so on. So I just want to make sure it's clear that we are all kind of skeptical of Core and Main, but evidently they're acting in some kind of manipulating effect in the region because nobody else bids or can bid or whatever. So word to the wise, you might not be dealing with top of the deck dealers, you know what I mean? So, Mr. Rush.
Just one other question too. The way the bid specifications are posted or listed, if a Ferguson or another competitor wanted to bid, they could bid on 3 items if they chose to.
Yes, they could.
Okay. They don't have
And
to
we
bid.
have in the past awarded multiple
remember
contracts
that.
to multiple vendors.
Right.
And I remember Mrs. Schnabel so
feel like I
eloquently does the motion that
Yes.
that would list the items for one vendor and the other items for another vendor.
Okay. So they just chose not to choose any of them.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, okay, well, I guess we're kind of between a rock and a hard place at this point if we want to have supplies next year. So you have a recommended motion. Would somebody like to make that motion?
I can read it.
Mrs. Schnabel, go ahead.
I move to authorize the CUE to execute a contract with Core and Main valid from January 1st, 2025 and running through and including December 31st, 2025 in accordance with the engineer's certified bid tabulation signed on December 2nd, 2024.
Thank you, Mrs. Schnabel. Is there a second?
I can second.
Second by Mr. Ricky. Further discussion? I have a question. What's the total value of this contract, roughly?
Bill, did you do the tally on it? If we bought every item at the
Well,
full
not if you bought
quantity?
every item, but how much did we pay them last year, for example?
I apologize, Mr. Chairman. I did kind of run some numbers. I don't.
A million,
recall off the top of my head.
you know,
I want to say it was under $1 million,
Mhm.
but more than
okay, well, it gives us
$500,000.
it gives us like a ballpark thing. They're not too leveraged by although the bid is, you know, whatever, 150 items or something. It's not overly leveraged. according
And
to our
as Mr.
business.
Monroe pointed out, those quantities, we probably won't buy every single one of those line items.
That's right.
That many.
That's why I said,
Yeah.
well, what did we do last year? So it's not a big percentage of what we're doing.
I will get that, I'll email it out to everybody, but
Okay.
I'm sure it's under $1 million.
Well, it just helps us understand what we're committing to when we have, you know, a little bit of a bad taste in our mouth with the bidder, Mr. Rush.
Yeah, you mentioned some of the items were higher, some were lower. Do we have an average price increase? And I'm sure the average is higher than rather than lower.
I came up with close to 10, 11%, again, based on all of the
Correct,
quantities.
correct.
So,
But, you know,
Yeah, if it was an analysis, Bill was looking at it as if we did purchase every
correct.
stated quantity compared to what our current price is, it was about around 10%.
Okay.
So up 10% in price, but
But what that value is much higher than what we actually spent in 2024
of course,
with Core and Main.
you didn't buy everything.
Yeah.
Okay. Anybody else with comments? All right, so moved and seconded, all in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, the motion passes. All right, next item is project updates. Mr. Urinich, I'm sure you've got pictures, accounts, and descriptions for the ball game here.
That I do. So for the power plant update, later this week will be the implosion of stack 8 and 9, the precipitator number 8, and the boiler units there. Weather is looking favorable, so hopefully later this week we can have another successful implosion there.
Did they have to paint them those colors?
That was highlighted off of the City of Avon Lakes update page. And that just kind of, the picture on the left is obviously before any of the work has started. Just kind of wanted to give an idea of, you know, how much different it's looking already. And it's going to look even more natural by the time we're done with this week.
Stack 8 and 9, or this and this, or this and this?
The two on the left,
Okay, so these two.
correct.
Okay, I was wondering the same thing.
What's the story on the last stack? Is it staying up?
Don't know.
Okay. Okay. It's not planned on this implosion though.
No,
Okay.
not part of this one.
I'd be surprised if it stays.
Oh,
It's a
exactly.
good picture.
Yeah.
I like the way you did that.
Okay, anything else on that item from Mr. Urinich? You may proceed.
ETL Design Services, no update. The water filtration plant improvements. So this is the progress they have been making on what will be the chemical feed building. You know, last time we had shown the picture where they had some of the concrete on the upper part of that picture covered, piping in the hot air, which I did learn was from I believe it was a diesel powered heater, blowing the air into there to keep the concrete warm. On the two completed circles on the right and the one that is in the progress of being completed, that is where the alum is going to be housed. We'll have 3 alum tanks. I believe those are approximately 10,000 gallons apiece. Actually, maybe a little bit more than that. It'll be enough for 3 loads of alum in each of those tanks. The sodium hypochlorite is the spot next to that. This is a shot that was just taken today as we were giving a tour of the water filtration plant. Kind of gives you an idea of, you know, how big that is going to be. It's a single floor, but the tanks inside the building are going up in a vertical fashion, so it needed to be rather tall. I believe it's about 32 feet is the overall height of what the finished chemical feed building will be. Moving on to the filter area. So tomorrow they're going to have, they call a requested outage. So the wash water, the air gap structure I'd mentioned in a previous meeting was standing directly in the way of where the new filters are going to be constructed. So they've installed the new air gap structure. Tomorrow they will be doing the tie-in for that. So for less than 12 hours, the water plant's going to be unable to wash any of the filters. They're going to be making the tie-in to this new structure. This time of year and at the flows we see, going that long without washing a filter is not going to stress the plant at all. That was one of the things when we had originally developed the scope of this project. We wanted to make sure that certain outages would be required to be done at what is our lowest demand of the year, so that we have the most opportunity to do those outages without it affecting anything. Just
Going
another.
back to the last picture before you move on, which of those is the air gap structure and what is the other thing?
So on the left is the air gap structure. That white coated pipe there is what is going to carry the wash water. So the way that will work is if we were to isolate the recycling of the wash water, we would close a valve that would allow the wash water to overflow into the sanitary connection. So in the past, that was what we had done with all of the wash water. Anytime we would wash a filter, all of that water would be carried directly into the sewers to the wastewater plants. Operating that way did present a few difficulties, mostly for the wastewater. If we were in a period of wet weather, they would typically see an increase in their flow, and they would often request that the water plant not wash any filters until the flow subsided. The other issue, especially this time of year, all of the, I guess, treatment work on the wastewater side is typically microbiological. Simply put, their bugs were not very happy when they would get washed with a ton of cold water. So by us recycling the wash water, which is already been treated and really is a very minor amount of treatment required to bring that back, that cuts down on our chemical usage, keeps the bugs of the wastewater plant happy. And we don't have to worry about increasing any flow during any increased flows there.
And then what's that cylindrical, vertical?
That I believe is just
Structure.
going to be a catch basin. I don't think that is in
That's
any way
stormwater, in
connected.
other words? Okay, sorry to take you out of your flow.
And then this is just kind of a view of along Lake Road where that wash water line is running to the east. That will carry it over to tie back into the existing wash water line. That runs over to what used to be clear wells 1 through 4 of the original treatment plant. That is what was converted to wash water attenuation, and then we slowly feed that back in through the treatment process.
Okay.
Very good. And I do have one more picture. So
Oh, there's the tank.
our container from TechWin is, as of, I believe it was 3:25 today, is passing through McCook, Illinois. It is currently on the railroad making its way to Cleveland. We are expecting to receive that on Monday. So arrangements have been made for a crane to be here. We will be looking to get that on site. We just making final preparations for working to get that hooked up and
So how does that work? Like it arrives here via train
correct.
and then we have to haul, like just,
They have already arranged for a shipping company that will be taking it from the port in Cleveland to our location.
They're loaded on a truck.
that's not like on a
Truck-
big, like
the
on
truck
a
will
big.
bring, no, it's not
No,
oversized.
okay.
It's a standard shipping container.
Okay.
And it'll get delivered to our site. We have made arrangements. We have a crane,
Mhm.
an operator that will be here to unload it.
Okay.
We have the site prepped, that it will get offloaded, where it's going to sit. And then that's when our work begins of, our responsibilities for getting all the utilities hooked up.
Okay.
And whatnot.
And this is in front of the waste treatment plant.
It's actually, yes, it's just adjacent. We're on the new property that we purchased.
Okay.
So where did this clear customs? That's taken care of.
Yeah, it came through customs in Long Beach, California. Yes. I will say that the communication has been very, very good between our TechWin partners, their agents that they hired to handle the logistics. And they actually have a logistics coordinator in Indiana, I believe is where she's located.
Elk Grove, I think.
Yes,
Oh, that's Illinois.
Illinois, yes. And they've communicated with us regularly, so it's been very positive.
Now, is that
Good.
graphic on there like something particularly for us, or was it?
It was custom just for this project that they did. And it's tough to see in there, but at the bottom towards the left side, you can see our logo.
I do see, yeah.
They do have our logo on there.
Oh, yeah.
And on the other side, on the ends of it as well. So it is a rather nice shipping container.
Yeah.
Yep.
So,
Okay, and then I assume this will be fenced in somehow?
Mhm. Yes, it is. It's fenced in and secured. Like I said,
Surveillance cameras and so forth.
Mhm. And we will have, as I said, the utilities. So the electric, we've already run the water and sanitary connections. Our folks did that, but we've got to get everything plumbed in. We've got to get the electrical contractor, which I know that Mr. Gadar, Mr. Kamevsky, Mr. Yurnich have been working with Mr. Gibney also, and our electrical engineer, Mr. Morsher.
That's who that was.
That's-
Pay.
Yes, to have our stamped drawings for this to ensure that everything is up to code, even though it's a temporary installation.
Still gotta
Nonetheless,
meet code.
absolutely, we still have to make sure it's done the right way. So we're anticipating, we're targeting March sometime to have things up and running. So
Good. I guess we'll have some kind of like ribbon cutting,
Mhm.
whatever for that.
once it is operational,
Inviting Team NEO and so on.
yes.
Okay, sounds good. Anything else on that, Mr. Y?
There is none.
Y. Okay. So that's project updates. Next up is the CUE report. Mr. CUE.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I do have a couple items to report on this evening. I did provide you with few news articles that have recently ran in Cleveland.com, also the Chronicle Telegram, one specifically relating to our notifications that we sent out to our customers regarding lead service line inventory and identification. That was a good article. They did take the time to speak with myself, Mr. Urinich, and Mr. Gibney. So we've provided them with the factual basis of that, and again, it helping us to get the message out. So that was one of the articles. The other two articles were actually, I should say, three articles. There was in the Chronicle Telegram, there was an article that was run initially regarding Lorain County, and their initiative on regional sewer, creating a regional sewer district that we have been part of. I know Mr. Dwanzik will report during his time about our attendance at the Building and Utilities Committee meeting. But that process is progressing. It was a relatively good article discussing that, the thoughts on the regional sewer. There was a follow-up to that, specifically regarding Vermilion and their interest in joining that regional sewer entity. So again, it was a good article. And then it was finally followed up with actually an editorial from the editorial board at the Chronicle Telegram, outlining their support of this regional sewer district, and the thought process of it. So, that again, it's good. I think it's being well received as we communicate this and as we work forward in this process, and we look to soon have public meetings and public hearings specifically on that topic. So that covers the news articles. Another item that I felt it was appropriate, seeing as this was our last meeting of 2024, provided a year-end report for the board members. And
like to highlight anything there?
there's a few items on there that I would like to highlight. I guess most notably, as we've discussed, our property acquisitions. We have, in total, we have acquired a little over 38 acres of land. That was a total of 25 parcels, and there were a total of 8 different property owners as part of those purchases. And the majority of the parcels were located directly adjacent to the water filtration plant, and that is for our future expansion of the water plant. And that's another item that I did include in the report, is part of our master planning efforts. And as we finish up our water system master plan with Stantec, we expect that final. We expect the draft any day, but the final to be in January. This is looking at our water filtration plant and our growth projections. We looked at organic growth just with our bulk customers in all of their areas. But we also looked at some of the what if scenarios, that if we needed to supply to a large development, what we would do. So once we receive that, that's going to be help guide us in our decisions of how we expand and when we expand the water filtration plant. But also looking at the properties that we've purchased as part of that were formerly owned by ALERG, Chara, the former power plant. And as that's contiguous to our properties, existing properties. So again, we made a lot of strides there, working with not only city officials and county officials, but at the state level also. And as we talk about our economic development and we work with Team NEO on these efforts, there's 2 items that come up in every single conversation, and that's water and sanitary sewer. And so we are very much involved in those conversations. And so our services are important to these areas of interest. Another item that I wanted to touch on was, obviously we closed out in 2024 the collection of fees that were owed to us by COF pertaining to trunk sanitary sewer fees. While that was a lengthy litigation, and even a lot of time before that, we're glad that we were made whole in the regard of principal and interest that was owed to the Board of Municipal Utilities and Avon Lake Regional Water. So we are glad that we did close that out.
Before you go on from there, Mr. Coyne, I believe you can add to this that the court found that we're entirely within our responsibility to collect these fees.
That's
And
correct.
there isn't any, no such suit could be, they could enter into it, but there's a precedent for you have to pay the fees.
Absolutely, absolutely. The court made that very clear. Those fees were due and owing, principal and interest, and of course, we resolved it. Or got too much more protected.
Right.
But that was quite a disagreement with the COP organization, but it's since been resolved.
Right, and it was by no means a bonanza for this organization, but we have felt in the past that we have to assert our duty and
Correct.
responsibility
That's
to
correct.
collect fees as required by our regulations.
That's correct.
So I think that's the main
Mhm.
importance of the
Yes.
decision,
Yes, absolutely.
because you'll later see that, we made more on interest.
Well, and that's a good segue is another big item that, we're proud that we accomplished this year and due large in part to Mr. Logan is working with the city on investing utility funds where the board felt they should be invested to maximize interest, and that was with Star Ohio. And so, to date, this year we've earned over $700,000 in interest earnings compared to last year in 2023 with similar market rates. Where the money was invested, we made about $365,000 last year. So again, it was a big accomplishment, and we're glad that we were able to do that. The city does have a new finance director that is starting tomorrow, I believe. I have had a chance to meet her. Mr. Logan also has met her, and we look forward to working with her to continue working on that path of ensuring our funds are separated.
Can you share a name?
Beth Crossy is her name.
CK?
Krossey. No Y? Okay, no Y. She was previously in Oberlin.
She's been in Oberlin for a while. Council approved her last night, I guess is the right word. She was the assistant in Oberlin for a long time. Their finance director retired a few months ago. A gentleman that had been the finance director there for quite a while and is one of the best finance directors I've known in this area. So she worked under him for a long period of time. I think she'll be very good.
Okay,
Good.
good. Go on, Mr. Monroe.
And, continuing on, talk about Lorco and coming to a, resolving and reconciling, this, we're all well aware of Lorco system and the slow startup over the years since inception. And we have worked cooperatively with them. And as we discuss the regional sewer district, it's Avon Lake Regional Water, Lorain County, and Lorco. Lorco is already a sewer district, but they are a supporter of this initiative. And so as this moves forward and we work out the agreements and the financial model and everything, once this entity is established, that's going to give Lorco the financial ability to make us whole on what is due and owing to us. So again, we look forward to, maybe in February, roughly, that we may be looking to start our public meetings. And so first quarter or so, maybe beginning of second quarter, to have petition ready for the Lorain County Court on the sewer district. So we look to just continue to make progress on that. And finally, we already talked about it, but the sodium hypochlorite generation facility and our partnership with TechWin. Our folks from TechWin were here in October. We did host them for 4 days. They came to the site. We did site visits. We had business meetings. Again, we had great support from the Team NEO, Lorain County, and others that are looking forward to this project taking off and some of the things that it could mean for us in the future. So that is all I have. But I would say, I take that back. That's not all I have. I would underscore all of these items that we've discussed and bold them with our continuous improvement initiative that we have across the organization. Staff has embraced this, and every aspect of our organization is the continuous improvement. There's going to be mistakes made, and that's going to happen. You're never going to eliminate every mistake. It's making sure that they don't happen again and determining what the root cause is and improving on them and improving the process. So we look forward to continuing that. We will have in the new year our facilities and asset manager here to provide our update on where we're at. So again, while I didn't specifically report on it, it's tied to everything that we do.
Mhm.
So, and again, I want to thank staff for embracing that.
Okay, couple of things, I think you sort of touched on it, but we have a couple of things that are also spanning years, and long time coming type of thing that I did not hear you mention, but you did just mention ISO 9000. Beyond the GIS rating that we got that on, what other initiatives do you see in the future?
So on the continuous improvement front, the energy, the 55,000 is one that we've been working on. And that's kind of that our approach was a obtainable goal. And so that, biting off the entire 9,001 initiative all at once was a little overwhelming for many to wrap their heads around. So but it's ingrained in every initiative that they do. So something that's much more within reach, like the energy standard, gives staff that ability to say, okay, I understand how this works, and the basis of ISO is ingrained in it.
Okay, any questions from anybody on the board with Mr. Monroe so far? I have another one. We have a couple of water towers that, have been outliving their lives, their
We have one.
best lives.
Yeah.
What's the plan on those?
So if you recall, we'll go back to earlier this year when we approved to award contracts to Great Lakes Construction for the water filtration plant improvements and Lycoming Supply for demolition services. We did not execute that contract with Lycoming because they had some emissions in their bid that they did not include removal of any hazardous materials. So we did not award that contract. It was part of our loan though. So we are going to have to rebid that to account for the demolition services. Obviously, demolition doesn't happen until pretty much all of our new appurtenances are built. So we have time on that. But our intent is that we're going to include the demolition of the Division Road water tower as part of that bid as well. And so it is realistically, that would probably happen in 2026 is when it would happen.
Mr. Rush?
And that, as we know, there's some cell tower antennas located on that tower, and that quadrant of the city has poor reception for some cell providers. Is that being addressed prior to the demolition of that?
Yes, it will have to be because of our operating or our leases that we have with the cell providers. We are looking at putting out an RFP for someone to build an actual cell tower in that location. And it would be similar to our ground lease that we have here at our water reclamation facility. We lease out a certain fenced area. They they pay us a lease, monthly lease, and they handle all of the cell provider. So that would have to be coordinated to have them switch over. But because typically the cell providers are all, they all work together, and the cell tower construction companies, they, a lot of the time when they're there building, the cell companies will contract them to do the switchovers for them. So yes, there is absolutely going to have to be a coordinated effort on that.
And as part of this, I don't want to say delay in bringing the tower down, but that has to be taken care of first.
Yes, yes,
That's the only tower coming down, correct?
that is,
Yeah.
yes. Yes, we, aside from the wash water tower at the water filtration plant, that is part of the project, that will be coming down. But in our distribution
Yeah.
system, that tower is no longer on our system. We dug up the connection, we cut it, capped it, sealed off, so it's not part of our
Right.
system.
Okay, anything else, Mr. Monroe?
No, that is all I have.
Okay, how about members, any members with reports? Mr. Ricky?
You know, I spent a lot of time in an airport today, and I did read the front page of the Chronicle, and maybe some of you have read it as well. And I think it's important for me to read this. And please understand, this is Elyria. This is not Avon Lake. This is Elyria. Dateline last night from their council meeting. Residents will see raising utility rates for the next 3 years as City Council voted on Monday to increase water, sewer, and sanitation rates for 2025. The largest increases was in the water rates that residents of Elyria and other cities on Elyria supplies will pay. Water rates will increase 15% each year in 2025, 26, and 27. Now, I just did the math while I was sitting there. That's a 52% increase over the next 3 years in Elyria for water. That's not sewage. That's not sanitary. That's just water. And, you know, I've been kind of a critic of us raising our rates 4% in January.
After no raises.
After no raises for a number of years. And I gotta, you know, I mean, tongue in cheek here, I guess we're really still doing very, very, very well when you look at this. And sewer rates will increase by 3.75% over the same 3-year period. So it's just 3.75% increase. While the households will also see a flat sanitation rate increase of $5 in 2025. You know what I'd like to do, if I could request, if Mr. Logan can maybe put together, once we do our increase, comparative rates on other water systems.
We often have seen that.
You know,
Not
with the
lately,
first of the
but
year, I think it's an appropriate time to do it because that's when a lot of the new rates become
go into
effective.
effect, yeah.
And I just, like I say, this was on the front page of the Chronicle this morning. I appreciate all the articles, but this was just this morning on the front page. But I would think that would be kind of appropriate to have for the first of the year, what everybody is paying for water. And I throw that out there for discussion, if
Sure.
that's what you think,
Sure.
Mr. Chairman.
No, absolutely. We've seen that before. In fact, if you go back to Mr. Monroe's predecessor, he used to have up here, we had a screen, I guess, that would show you things like that. And I actually think that we actually outperformed what he projected in terms of rates.
Well,
Because one of the things that this board did, once we have somebody carefully looking at the finances, it's not, and we have Raftelis here, it's not just like throwing a dart at the wall,
no.
hoping for the best. That looks like 4%, you know. Like
Yeah,
it's
I mean,
close.
and
It's
again,
gonna be 19%, but we're just over the line of 4%.
Well, I'm the first to admit that I have been critical of the
Now
rate
you feel better.
increases, and I feel a little better. And again, compounded, that's 52%
Yeah, it's a
increase
lot.
over the next 3 years.
Well, you know, how much did your property tax rate go up?
Yeah, we don't want to talk about all that. Ouch. But again, that's just something for residents to understand that our rate increase is nowhere close to what Elyria is raising water rates.
That's right, and it's all
And-
planning. This is all why we're here, is this
You
planning.
know, so
And I think we're doing, Mr. Monroe and company are doing well. So,
that's all I have, Mr.
thank you,
Chairman.
Mr. Ricky. Mr. Rush.
Just to follow up on that, our repairs know well in advance of when it's going to happen too. It doesn't happen from one month to the next because with our partners, our customers, we have to give them notification 6 months ahead of time. So we have a lot of time to plan for it, if you will, our residents do. Much longer period of time versus maybe some of these other communities who vote in December for a rate increase in January.
Right. Okay, thank you, Mr. Ricky, for that. Anyone else with member reports? I have a couple of items myself. As Mr. Monroe went into great detail on Lorraine County Regional Sewer, but I did go to the Building and Utilities Committee last week and made a presentation about what's going on with the Lorraine County Regional Sewer. And as Mr. Monroe said, it's going along very well, and there should be some money coming from the state for all this kind of thing and from the U.S. EPA, but it's very well received by the city and, appears to be well received in terms of our getting funding. Not us, it's really the county, but this enables us to do certain things with Lorco that we wouldn't otherwise be able to do. Another thing that was activity since the last meeting, as I have requested Mr. Monroe do his self-appraisal for, effective the end of the year and submit it by January 31st. Then we can go through the process, and hopefully Mr. Monroe will be doing the same thing with his staff. And last item, unfortunately, we don't have Mr. Abram here, but we do want to recognize that today is his last meeting that he unfortunately missed, but we have drafted a resolution and everyone has signed it on the behalf of the board, thanking Mr. Abram for his service as a board member. I think, if I'm not mistaken, something like 1 6-year and 1 8-year period. I'm not sure what but pretty long time. And he has agreed to step down, to make room for new members and younger people to continue the continuity of the board, which we have been striving for. Although we all look very young, we're not. And so that is on the screen. Mr. Monroe just had the resolution, and we hope to see Mr. Abram at the Christmas party on Thursday, and we have a few gifts for him. So anyway, that's all I have. Anyone else? All right, well, I think we time for the public speakers. Mr. Phillips, you have something want to add? Mr. Urinich, anybody commenting?
There was a partial comment from Amy Gentry. I'm not sure if she got cut off while she was typing, but it specifically says it will remain.
It will remain?
Yes.
Oh, well,
I asked for
hopefully that's something
clarification,
good,
and I have not received clarification from her yet.
Okay.
Sounds like a smokestack to me.
Okay, Mr. Phillips, fire away.
Gerald W. Phillips, 461 Windward Way. I attended the city council meeting last night, and they did pass a temporary budget. Included in the temporary budget were they appropriated various funds for the enterprise funds. So and maybe Mr. Logan can clarify this. It seems like they're compatible, that, the funds, and then within the funds, the Avon Lake Regional Water can appropriate to the various accounts. That's what it appears to me. If that's incorrect, then you can indicate that. I'm looking at the November 19th, 2024 work session meeting minutes, and Mr. Logan informed the board that they were gonna introduce two new accounts, Fund 222 and 223. Then he indicated that the budgets, it says, compared to the city of Avon's water and sewer budgets, that they were comparable except for the $3.2 million appropriate for ALERG. Is that city of Avon's Lake or is that city of Avon?
I can clarify for
Yeah.
you, sir. The two new funds are for our sewer collection group and our water distribution group. So basically, it's separating out the two plants. The water plant would be on its own, the sewer plant on its own, and then these two new funds, which we refer to as the distribution and collection group, which is very similar to what Avon has. Avon has, they don't have the plants, obviously, like we do, but they have a distribution and collection utility group that services the lines, maintains the lines, the infrastructure, does all the billing and collection of the residents and businesses and so forth. So our budgets by our 2025 budgets, tentative budgets for these two new funds, if you pull out the $3 million that's budgeted yet for property acquisition, as Mr. Monroe mentioned, for future expansion, the dollars are very similar to what Avon's budget is for 2025.
So the 3.2 is an appropriation for 2025 to buy more ALERG property?
Not ALERG property. ALERG property was purchased in 2024 and
Yeah, I
settled
know,
in
that's
August.
that's why I asked the question, because I know it was bought in 2024. Now, you have existing accounts 701 and 721. So are they gonna stay?
Yeah, those two funds will stay, but
Okay.
they're going to be pared down.
Yeah, that's,
Because-
okay, so you're just taking the 701 and leaving some of it there and creating a new account from 723 water. And with the sewer 721, you're leaving some there and you're gonna take some over to the 722 sewer. Is that a fair statement?
Yes.
All right. Now, I'm assuming you have a chart of accounts for all the funds. Now, like utilities, is that number for that account, like I see on the orange sheet, I see various general ledger accounts like 53613. Is that like a uniform account for all funds, like utilities has the same number?
Yeah, so the 700s, the 700 series is what we would call it. Yeah, so anything with a 700 would be utilities. So
Yeah, but I'm talking
701.
about within each fund, you have various categories of revenues and expenses. Do those revenues and expenses have a common number? Okay,
Yes.
in all funds except the beginning 701 or whatever it is?
The first three digits, as Mr. Monroe mentioned, is the fund number. So 701 is the water fund. That 5-digit number you referred to, 53613, whatever it was, that is consistent throughout the city.
Okay.
So
All right.
their funds have that same expense line.
Okay, that good? Your
Well-
3 minutes is up. I think that's your timing. Okay. These kinds of questions, Mr. Phillips, feel free to call in and
Yeah, I mean,
there's
the other information
informational.
was about the CAFRA, that the city doesn't have it,
Call in,
2023.
it's informational stuff Mr. Monroe can provide if you're, have a thing that you're
No, I have
trying
no
to
problem, Mr.
broadcast.
Monroe. Like I said, we get our public records requests from, not like other places. Thank
Okay,
you.
Mr. Zimmerman.
I'm not gonna waste your time or mine. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, I think that brings us to the end then, Mr. Urinich.
I did get clarification
Okay.
from Councilwoman Gentry, and it was referring to the stack. It will remain, so.
Yeah, well, I had
That's
to
a
ask the
good point.
question because the way the pictures were formatted, you couldn't tell which was which. So anyway, in this season of, goodwill towards men, we would like to wish everyone Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, etc. This will be the last meeting of the year, and we hope that we'll see everyone again in good health in the new year. Thank you from my standpoint to the board and the staff, and to Mr. Mondello, who will be taking the oath of office in January to fill the position of Mr. Abram. Is there anything else anyone would like to add? Again, all the best to Avon Lake Regional Water customers, and for a happy and prosperous new year, and see you after the year changes. All in favor of, I'd like to make a motion to adjourn. May I have a second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned. Thank you all.
Nick, do you want to make a photocopy of this or take a picture of this one?
I should, yeah.